Welcome back to the Sound for More channel and welcome back to a new demonstration and tutorial. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to June from AudioThing, which is a great emulation of the famous Roland JUNO-60 from the 80s. Before I continue, I would like to remind my viewers to subscribe as it helps with growing the channel. Thank you very much. Additionally, if you would like to support what I do, please do check the instruction contained in each video description. Thank you again. So, June, well, sounds great to start with. When you load it, this is what you see, and you have an init preset. It's quite interesting that if you move to a different preset, so you click here, you open the view for banks and categories, you have your factoring and user banks and different categories. If, for example, we are on discovery, if you want to go back to the init, you need to go to the keys category and then choose inited. There you are. You don't have a menu here where you can initialize it. Okay. The other thing as well, you can move in up and down in terms of zooming, and you can do scrolling as well. You have global settings here where you can enable zoom and scroll as you like as well. It's very good with DSP usage. We are inside the AUM at the moment. We have a couple of other things running that I might use, like some MIDI processor from JMLK, and I have also an oscilloscope here, and you can see 4% of DSP which is utilized. Nice icon as well. In terms of size, it's only 22 megabyte on the iPad, so it's really good. Because it's an emulation, it's really great in terms of usage, in terms of space. So if you're struggling with that, that works really nicely. It's available also on iOS, not only iPad OS. So that's great. So you can continue to, for example, to build your preset on an iPhone, which is great. It runs also on desktop, so you can run it on Mac, you can run it on Windows, on Linux, and of course the usual format on desktop, VST, VST3, AU, etc., etc. It is inside the AUM at the moment, so we are running it as an AUv3, but it can also run standalone, both for the iPad or for on the tablet, and also for the desktop. It can also run on a standalone mode as well. In terms of parameters, exposed, a new parameter is really good. Loads, lots and lots and lots, even down to the number of voices that you can change programmatically. And as you can see, it can go up to 32 voices, which is great. So a lot of potential there. So let's listen a little bit to what it sounds like, and then we go into how it works. Let's listen at the lower registry. Which sounds absolutely great. Careful, because you can pick really easily. If you go also to the hamburger menu global setting, you can enable soft clip. I also removed any background noise because that is not what I want. You can also use LFO extended range, which I find that quite useful when you use the LFO itself. Pads are gorgeous, really. absolutely fantastic. If you are struggling, of course, with number of voices, here you have this additional menu where you can move. For example, you can go to extra here and you can change the max voices to 32, okay? And that really helps, right? So you can see standard interface with the controls from the typical UI of that Roland product in terms of how the different slider works. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to distinguish here between the lines, but that's okay. And then you have additional extra tab here. You can go from keys, extra, and effects. Indeed, you have a lot of different effects that you can use on top of your JUNO-60 emulation, which does really help. You can move up and down, of course, to go down to the next preset. If you use internal keyboard, and you can see it zoom in and out nicely, and it's very responsive as a UI as well. You can bypass it, of course, here on and off, and you can do it also from the AU parameter, which is really good. You can lock parameter, which and unlock them as you prefer. And you have option here to lock and unlock all parameters. You can do preset copy and paste on the clipboard. You can import and export user presets. So hopefully in the future we will see some additional banks, some additional presets. That would be great. Graphic controls, I really like this because you can adjust the brightness and the contrast, which sometimes help with capturing the differences between the slider here and the different lines. So I like, for example, to increase the contrast, things like that. But and then of course you can adjust the brightness. But if you want to go back to the original, click on reset. It has that white screen as it is changing. You can access the online menu and of course the about. This is version 1.0, so build 479. I noticed only rarely some notes getting stuck, but as I said, this is the first version. It will get much better as we move forward. I noticed just a trick. If you get notes stuck, turn on and off the Arpeggiator, and most of the time actually they disappear. I only experienced once a crash, no more than once on my iPad Pro M1, so pretty stable as a first edition. Okay, so let's keep moving. Let's try some sequences. It has an arpeggiator, so that's great. So it doesn't have a sequencer, but this is an emulation of the JUNO-60, so you would not expect that. You notice the arpeggio was running, it was on here, but also it had a hold on, which means that you don't have to keep your fingers on the keys, right? And then you can move on, which is to play other chords, which is really great. Let's try again. So. So it is your latch on, right? So that is great. So it sounds really, really amazing. Okay. There is absolutely no doubt it sounds really, really good. Okay, you can save, you can delete, and you can also randomize preset. Careful when you randomize, because it doesn't seem at this stage to be in, it's not like AI randomization. So sometimes it creates some very distorted type of sound. So, well, more than distorted is the combination really that it chooses, which is truly random in some cases. So sometimes you don't have any sounds because maybe the filter's too low. So hopefully that function will improve in the future. But again, it's an amazing product. Okay, so let's go to keys and let's load that initialize preset. And what I'm going also to do, I'm going to go to full screen so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so when it is initialized, you have the sawtooth here waveform. I like to go to extra here. I like to change the number of voices to maximus, okay, which really helps. Here you have also a way to transpose it up and down by an octave, so it's great. So and you have to click and hold, then drag right and left. You can adjust tuning, which is great. Double click to reset it, so up and down by plus and minus 7 semitones. You can adjust the age, give it a little bit more that warm aging character. Which is always really useful. Now, this is really what I like as well. You have control for modulation, which can go to your DCO in terms of pitch, or to your filter, your VCF. So let's say I set the filter up a maximum. Now, if I use the modulation wheel, you don't hear anything because the cutoff frequency is already a maximum. So let me lower that. And now you hear it. Of course, if this was up to maximum and I do the other way around, negative, so you hear that the opposite way. When I move it down, okay, it's going to lower the cutoff ear value. That is why you hear it. Double click again to reset it. You can have it to action on the DCOs. And of course, you can go negative as well. So when you go up, it increases this negative value on the DCO. And of course, you can do the opposite. Double click to reset it, all the controls. Equally, here you have a volume adjustment. Very useful to check that it is not clipping. Hold, I already explained that. And then here you have a pitch a lever as well, and you can route it to the DCO and the VCF as well. Okay, we can go to the VCF now. Adjust this a bit there. So you can simulate in this case that it opens up a little bit the filter itself, which is great. Okay, so I'll come back to this LFO trigger. Let's go back to keys. Actually, before we go there, just to note that you can set it to go to mono. And you can have also legato on and off. So that allows you not to trigger, of course, the envelope again when it is on. Maximum polyphony, we have seen that. And then unison, which can go up to 6. And then with this fat dial, you can adjust the detuning. And again, you can reproduce some really nice presets. Even without going to 6 unison voices, still sounds amazing. Now you have chorus. The first one is the lowest chorus. Makes a massive difference. Then you have the second one, which is the faster. And then you can enable them together, which makes them one sequential to the other or cascaded down, because the original one had stereo and their own the chips. So that means it will be mono processing. And of course, you can adjust the rate. As well, you can introduce some noise emulation on the circuitry. Okay, and of course you can change the model between JUNO-60 or the J6. There are subtle differences, of course. Okay, so this is the explanation of most of the parameters. And let's go to the effect. As you can see, you can turn them all on, like so. Do you see the red lights will go on, or you can have them off as well. And then, of course, you can activate the sprint reverb. You can adjust the mix, the tone. Darker, lower here, and you can give it also pre-delay. You can introduce a phaser as well, which helps. You can adjust the rate. Feedback, of course. And the mix. You can have an overdrive on. You can adjust the drive here. Again, careful, you will pick easily. You can adjust the tone. Less darker, more brighter, etc. And then you can adjust the mix. Deactivate that, and then we have, of course, a tape echo effect. So I'm just lightly touching keys on my external controller now. You can change the rate. Yeah, it is synced to the host, but if not, you can go in millisecond, or otherwise you sync it to the host and you have node subdivision. You can decide how long the feedback is, and then the mix. It's good to have it at roughly 50%, and then of course you can enable multiple effects as you prefer. Sounds amazing already. Back to the keys view. You can see here you have still represented the pitch bend, which you can act on DCO and VCF as well, overall volume and hold, and then the virtual keyboard here. Now you can have glide, which can always be active, and you can set the amount here. Or you can have it work only when you are working on legato. So if I skip between keys, it doesn't play. But if I play legato, so I play the next note before I completely release the previous one, then I have it running. Or I have it always running. So that's legato. So really, really straightforward. Okay, so let's have a look at the synth itself. So standard waveform is this sawtooth. And I tried also to have a look at it through the oscilloscope, which can be quite useful if you like to do that. Okay. Here we have a sub oscillator. At the moment you don't hear it, you need to increase the volume here. You can change the transposition of that sub oscillator to mine from an octave, 2 octaves, etc. So you can go really, really low and dark, and it performs well as well. Now, if you disable those two, you press keys, you don't hear anything. You have noise as well. So when you press keys, now you hear noise. And then you have these pulse width. You can do pulse width modulation. Which you can have it running based on LFO. So I'm decreasing the rate here on the LFO, which will act on the modulation of the pulse width. I can give it also delay time. So the LFO will come in later, press the key, and then it comes in later. Okay, you can change, by the way, the sound wave here. For example, waveform for the LFO goes to square. You clearly hear it. It's on and off, opening and closing, so it's really clear cut. Okay, and of course you can have it triangle, so up and down, and sample and hold, which is quite nice. Might be good to adjust on the filter the resonance here and the frequency cutoff. Now, instead of LFO, you can have it to work manual as well. So you go up and down yourself. Or you can have it being triggered by envelope 1 or envelope 2. As you can see here, it says envelope 2. Click where the arrow is going up. The arrow changes to going down. So this is envelope 1. So attack, decay, sustain, release. Click here, we go to envelope 2. And now what we could do, for example, is increase attack. And it will come in terms of pulse modulation later on. Okay, so different ways that you can run it. Okay, perfect. You can also have the LFO impacting the VCO. Change the waveform to triangle. Decrease rate. You can also trigger it automatically or manually if you set it to manually. When you press key, nothing happens. So, but when you hold the key and press the LFO trigger here button, it will come on. And when you press it again, it will come off. So it is really useful if you want to introduce it yourself or remove it as well. You have a high pass filter here. You can adjust the frequency. And then you have a VCF, water control filter. Your filter, you can adjust the frequency and the resonance. And of course, you can decide how much the envelope will modulate the filter. So we can go up here at maximum. Let's reduce here the cutoff. Let's set these down to 0. Okay, let's remove also the sub-oscillator because we don't really need that. And so on and so forth. Now, it's good practice if you want to demonstrate feature to reinitialize it. Now, so let's get the envelope back on here. So it's going up here, right? So in order to hear it, it's based on envelope number 1, but we can change it to envelope number 2, and it's positive as a sign. So we go to envelope number 2. We gave it some attack. And perhaps we remove a lot of decay. Decay. So you hear it goes up and then it comes down. And this can be useful if you want to create bass type of sounds. Of course, you might want to have it quicker. Let's increase the intensity of that envelope in terms of modulation to the filter. You can also change the polarity, so it will go the opposite way. Okay, instead of going up, it will come down. In this case, it's better you increase the cutoff frequency. You might want to increase the attack here. So it drops down, then it comes up. And it drops down on the amount here of the attack, and then it slowly releases based on the decay because the sustain is 0. Okay, so that's how we do that. We double click here to reset the envelope. Let's put this one positive again. Let's put the cutoff roughly there, and we can have modulation via the LFO on the filter as well, acting on this. You can reduce the modulation intensity, which helps. And then perhaps we can go to the effect and add some springs. Of course, reverbs. Sounds great. Let's add the tape echo. In terms of VCA, you have envelope 1, like so, and therefore you might want to add, for example, attack if you want to create a type of pad. Absolutely stunning. Of course, you can do keyboard tracking here, which of course change the filter based on the keys you press on the keyboard. Then you can have it sensitive to velocity as well. Of course, it depends on how it is being modulated. Okay, if it is modulated active, of course, or not, but that can be useful to combine the two. The VCA itself, you can run also as a gate. Let's turn this off. So if you press and hold the key, it sounds immediately and the sustain, which is the equivalent of having it as envelope 1 and put attack down to 0 or sustain to maximum. Similar thing. You can have it to respond to velocity. So let's enable velocity on my external controller. Slow and strong now. There you go. So, or no, you don't want it to respond to velocity. Let's set it to gate now. And then you have these fantastic arpeggios. So turn it on, like so. Okay. Let me reset it, because I like to reset instead of checking all the different parameters. It makes it much easier. So. So you can do up and down, you can do a bar reset as well, you can change the range itself as well, the rate which can be synced to the host, and then you can take the velocity for each note, so the last one which is being played, and then you order of the notes and based on pitch what is being played, or as called as chord as well. And of course, there are lots of different ones that you can find, for example, here on this category called sequences. So you can change it, for example, only up, up and down. Let's remove actually the overdrive in echo. It's going up 2 octave. It could go up, for example, 3. We can increase the speed. So lots of different possibility. It sounds absolutely fantastic, really, really great, and works really well as well in terms of with other instrument as well. So. Okay, and let's enable core bud instead, so that we can have some chords being played as well. So, and we choose why not a pod. Let's try. So play. Okay, so as you can hear, it works really well via MIDI as well, with chord bud or polybud, etc., or any other MIDI processor. So I think I went through the majority, or if not all, the different features and controls. Of course, you can also drag and drop, which I haven't mentioned in terms of effect. So you can change the destination, like so the order in terms of how you apply the different effects. But I covered all the controls, so happy programming with this new synth. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.